You achieve true freedom and the end of suffering when you live as if what you feel or what you experience in this moment is completely your choice. This inner attunement with the now is the end of suffering. Is suffering really necessary? Yes and no. If you hadn't suffered what you suffered, you would have no depth as a human being. You would have no humility, no compassion. You wouldn't be listening to this text right now. Suffering breaks the shell of the ego, of the self-centered I, and promotes an opening until reaching a point in which it has fulfilled its function. Suffering is necessary until you realize that it is unnecessary. Unhappiness needs an I constructed by the mind. An I with a story and an identity. It needs time, past and future. When you eliminate time from your unhappiness, what is left? The situation at a time can be a feeling of heaviness, agitation, chest tightness, anger, and even nausea. This is not unhappiness. It is not a personal problem. There is nothing personal about human suffering. It's just a strong pressure or an intense energy that you feel in some part of the body. If you focus your attention on that energy, the sensation does not become thought, and so it does not reactivate the unhappy self. See what happens when you just allow a feeling to exist. There's a lot of suffering and sadness when you think every thought that goes through your head is true. Situations are not the cause of unhappiness. The thoughts about the situations are what makes you unhappy. The interpretations you have, the stories you tell yourself, are what makes you unhappy. The things I'm thinking about right now make me unhappy. If you can realize that, you do not identify with these thoughts. What a horrible day. He didn't have the courtesy to return my call. She rejected me. We create stories for ourselves and for others, generally in a complaining tone. Unconsciously, they serve to reinforce the notion that we are right and someone or something is wrong. To think we're right and the other's wrong puts us in an illusory position of superiority, and with that, we strengthen our false sense of I. In this way, we create a kind of enemy, because the I would need enemies to define its boundaries and identity. To judge someone or some fact is to create suffering for yourself. We are capable of creating all kinds of suffering for ourselves, but we don't realize it, because in a way these sufferings satisfy the ego. The self-centered I feels more comfortable in conflict. How simple life would be without these stories the thought creates. When you are suffering, when you are unhappy, stay totally with the now. Unhappiness and problems cannot survive the now. Suffering begins when you rate or label a situation as undesirable or bad. You get offended by something, and this offense awakens an ego that reacts. To rate and label are common behaviors, but they are also a habit that can be broken. Start by trying not to label small events. If you missed the plane, if you tripped, if you broke a cup, slipped and fell in the mud, Will you be able to contain yourself and not label the fact as bad or disastrous? Are you able to accept the situation just like something that happened at that moment? To label something as bad causes emotional tension. If you let things exist without classifying them, you acquire enormous power. Emotional tension separates you from that power, which is the very power of life. When we relate to experiences trying not to react, what we would previously call bad changes rapidly through the power of life itself. Watch what happens when instead of classifying something as bad, you accept it and internally you say yes, letting the experience be as it is. Whatever the situation, how would you feel if you accepted it as it is right now? There are many subtle and less subtle ways of suffering, so normal that they are not usually considered suffering, and they can even seem satisfying to the ego. Some of them, irritation, impatience, anger, confrontation, resentment, complaint. You can learn to recognize all these forms of suffering when they occur and say to yourself, I am creating suffering for myself. If you are in the habit of creating suffering for yourself, you must also be creating for others. To eliminate these unconscious mental models, simply acknowledge them, noticing them as soon as they appear. It's impossible to be conscious and at the same time create suffering for yourself. The miracle is this: behind every situation, person, or something that looks bad or perverse, a profound good is contained. This good reveals itself to you internally and externally when you accept the situation as it is. Accept what is. I can't. I feel agitated and irritated by it. Then accept what is. Accept that I'm agitated and irritated. Accept that I can't accept. That's right. Accept your non-acceptance. Surrender to your non-surrender. And see what happens. Physical pain is one of the toughest masters you can have. It teaches us that resistance is futile. It is absolutely normal not to want to suffer. But if you let go of that desire and accept the presence of pain, you may notice a subtle internal separation, a space between you and the pain. This means that you start to suffer consciously, acceptingly. When you suffer consciously, when you accept physical pain, it nullifies the ego, because the ego is formed mainly by resistance. The same occurs with a great physical handicap. To offer your suffering to God is another way to do it. You don't have to be a Christian to understand the profound universal truth symbolically contained in the image of the cross. The cross is an instrument of torture. It symbolizes one of the greatest sufferings, limitations, and helplessness that a human being can experience. Then all of a sudden, this human being surrenders and accepts conscious suffering. This is what the words of Christ on the cross translate: "Be it done to me according to your will, not mine." At that time, the cross, the instrument of torture, shows its hidden face. It is also a holy symbol, a symbol of the divine. I'll tell you a big secret. Don't fight the mind. Don't expect your mind to calm down as you become aware of your natural state of being. you stop getting involved with the mind. At this time, while I'm talking, there is nothing you need to do. That is the wonder of consciousness. Pay attention to realize just the feeling of being. It is not a big deal. I'm not telling you to do something complex. You are already in the state of being. It won't come from somewhere. It's already here. The reason we doubt it is because most of the time, we dedicate our energy to paying attention to the mind. And it's like the mind sucked all your energy and pulled you towards a personal identity and sent you on all these journeys to do this and that. Now, while you are here with me, when I say, stay as you are, touch no substance of the mind, no intention, even the intention of awakening to the I. Just remain empty for now. Don't even try to become being. You already are. You simply are here. And when you allow yourself not to get involved with the things of the mind, then everything starts to slow down by itself. You are perceiving only the space of being, and it is then natural. Because it's so natural, you don't give it importance. It is natural and effortless. The mind is trying to make you a spiritual achiever. You don't have to do this, and stop doing that, and get rid of this, and become that, and all those things. No, you do not need to. Just pay attention to your natural being. You can do it now. It simply is here. And even if some thoughts come and say, but that can amount to nothing. I've done this before, nothing happens. Let that chatter continue. But don't get involved with it. The more you practice this, which is the act of letting the mind chatter, the less attention you give it. Just empty yourself of it. At first, it may seem that there is a reflex to engage with the mind, but gradually, you become better at staying out of it. Don't get into any street fights with your mind. Then what? Then nothing. You are simply here. A thought may arise, but you realize it's just a thought. The more you pay attention to your natural and simple quality of being, the more your power of discernment becomes sharpened. These are simple things, and they bear fruits immediately. This piece of being remains with you. Sometimes you feel like you've been caught off guard, and suddenly there is a mind storm and an identity. Again, stay exactly as you are. And as many times the mind may seem to be attacking, just come back to this place to which I am pointing. Just come and stay here. This may seem overly simplistic advice, but it works every time. What you are doing may not seem like much, or it may also seem too difficult. But what is happening is that you are allowing yourself to recognize and be aware of yourself. This is true self-awareness. It is to be self-conscious, and that is your fundamental power. To be self-aware. Don't think you have to study a lot of books and have many concepts in your mind. That just feeds the mind too often. Follow this simple advice. Why follow this simple advice? Because it's not hard for you to change the quality of your mental awareness by simply staying that way. And you will see, the more you do it, the more established you become within the energy of the heart. And from here you will see that life, your perspective, and your energy vibration change and become much smoother, more spontaneous, light, open, without fear.